my water just broke. I felt like things really intensified.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Hunt-Palmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place for women to come together to share their childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from women all over the world. Today's episode is sponsored by Ergobaby. Founded in 2003, Ergobaby is dedicated to building a global community of confident parents with smart, ergonomic solutions that enable and encourage bonding between parents and babies. Ergobaby offers a broad range of award-winning baby carriers, strollers, swaddlers, nursing pillows, and related products that fit into families' daily lives seamlessly, comfortably, and safely. At the end of today's episode, I spoke to Kelly all about the new Embrace carrier from Ergobaby. A big thank you to our listener supporters via Patreon. We're almost to 500 supporters, which is amazing because that means we're halfway to our goal of launching that second episode where we interview partners on their perspective of the birth story. We have so many exciting things coming up this month, including an expert interview with someone on postnatal depletion, another Ask Me Anything that I'm going to record with my husband, and the patrons get to vote on some of those topics. So I'm so excited for all the fun things in 2020 for our listener supporters. If you want to join that group and support the podcast, head over to patreon.com/birthhour or thebirthhour.com/support. And don't forget that if you're joining right now, you're going to be entered into our huge giveaway we have going on for a year's supply of diapers from Diaper. They make bamboo, eco-friendly diapers that are disposable diapers, as well as a huge prize package from Ergobaby. The total value of that grand prize is over $1,400, so that's huge. And then there's also a second and third place winner. So you have to be a listener supporter to be entered in that giveaway, and it will go until we reach that 1,000 patrons goal. So we're halfway there to announcing that winner. All right, today's guest is Logan. She's going to be sharing 4 birth stories, just briefly touching on the first 3 and then focusing on her most recent, which was an accidental unassisted birth at home. Hi, Logan. Welcome to the Birth Hour. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey, Bryn. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell my listeners just a little bit about you and your family, and then we'll get into your stories?
Sure. So my husband, Brian, and I live in Pennsylvania. I am originally from Canada. I came down about 10 years ago, and I was visiting my sister and met my husband at the gym. And I guess I'm still here. I'm staying. So I guess I'm not visiting anymore. We have 4 daughters, 7, 5, 2, and 1. So we have 2 in diapers right now, which is super interesting. And I really love talking about birth and sharing about birth. All of my births have been so different, and I really feel I felt empowered after every one. Even when things didn't go as planned, I felt like it really shaped me as a woman and as a mother. And I just really love when women feel knowledgeable and they feel like their voice is being heard going into birth. And I feel like the more that we talk about birth and the more we talk about our stories and share options and let women know that they really, they have choices, but also know that like things might not go as planned, and that's okay too. I just really love that like sisterhood through sharing our stories.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's what the Birth Hour is all about. So I'm so happy to have you here today. And you've got 4 girls, so you kind of have your own little sisterhood growing in your house there.
Totally.
All right, well, let's go back to your first pregnancy and how that went.
Okay, so let me think. I was only 23. Oh my goodness. It seems like I was a baby, but I was 23 during my first pregnancy. And I was just so excited to be pregnant. I was just so excited, and I was just so excited for my belly to get so big and like the whole thing. And my pregnancy was pretty good. I mean, I was nauseous in the first trimester. Second trimester was fine. And then the third trimester hit, and I remember just being so uncomfortable. My belly got so big, actually the biggest of any of my pregnancies. I don't think I was quite expecting, but it was fine. I feel like it develops, that third trimester develops character, because it's like, it starts testing you a little bit. And it was fine. So, my pregnancy, everything, there were no major complications or anything, with Briar, my oldest. I did go up to my due date. I was with a midwife. We were going to be at the hospital, and I had kind of planned, like, I don't want to be induced. I want to just, wait it out. But by the time I got to my due date, I felt like I was in a state of like, I just need to have this baby now. I really felt like, mentally I needed some sort of relief. So when I went to my last appointment, there was, I don't know if she thought maybe I was leaking amniotic fluid, or she was worried about the size of the baby, or there was something. And she said, I think it's time. Like, I was a few days overdue. So she had me come into the hospital, and I had a lot of Braxton Hicks contractions throughout my third trimester. And for it being my first baby, my midwife was like a little surprised that I was having so many contractions. She had said, okay, so we're going to induce you on Monday. And I said, okay, what if do we have to break my water and start Pitocin, or could we just break my water and can I walk around and see if that works? I was thinking, like, there's really no harm in doing that. Let's give that a try. And it would be like a little bit more hands off, and I could see if my body would do it. And she had kind of said, like, yeah, we can let you try that, but I don't think that's going to work. I've never really seen that work. Somebody who's not in labor, just like breaking their water and then not just starting labor. I'm like, okay, so how long will I have? And she said, well, you have like I'll give you 4 hours. And if no contractions are starting, we're going to start Pitocin. And so Monday morning I went in, and I think at 8:00 or 8:30, she broke my water. And before I even got off the table, I was in labor. Like, I was having full contractions, and I could tell it was very different from a Braxton Hicks contraction. Like, the first time you have a real labor contraction, it feels different. You just know, like, in your soul, like, this is not, my body's not playing around. So it was just funny because I went right into labor. I think I had maybe 6 hours later, which for your first birth,
wow, yeah,
is pretty quick.
Very quick, with not, starting labor on your own too. I mean, it sounds like you probably were already maybe in labor.
Yeah. So, and Briar was 8 pounds, 2 ounces, which is like a good size, pretty big for a first baby. And everything postpartum was fine with Briar. I was in the hospital. I had like a pretty good experience. There were like a couple things that I was like, meh, but for the most part, it was a pretty good experience. I felt good postpartum. I was just like so excited and relieved, honestly, to have a baby in my arms and not in my belly, because I was so uncomfortable at the end of my pregnancy, and I was just so excited to meet her. And I was really, honestly, like, so happy postpartum just to have that relief physically and have her in my arms. And it was just all around it was good. And then 2 years later, I had Willow. So my first and my second are about 24 months apart.
Did you plan the same type of maternity care and birth?
Okay, so for Willow, I started to consider a home birth. My sister had 3 home births, and I was at them all before I was pregnant. Oh, so that was very normal to me and very comfortable for me. And so I ended up switching to the same midwife that she had, and a midwife that does home births primarily, but also has rights at a hospital. So when I started going to her, I was very much like, okay, we're exploring maybe doing a home birth. I'm not sure. My husband was not sold yet. He works in the medical field and was very much like, why would we do a home birth? I don't get this. Why would we do that when we could be at a hospital? And I was like, I just love the idea of being at home and our older daughter being there. And we just started like exploring that a little bit. And throughout my pregnancy, we decided we were just going to talk about it and see how it felt. And we didn't really need to decide until about 36 weeks. And then we were going back and forth. I remember like one day we would be, okay, we're doing a home birth. The next day we'd be like, okay, we're at the hospital. And we ended up deciding to do the hospital again. No particular reason. It was kind of like we were 50-50 and I knew my husband was more comfortable there. So everything was pretty good with my pregnancy, my second pregnancy. I actually felt more comfortable than my first. I think my body just like kind of stretched out, my belly stretched out my first time. And the second time I felt like it wasn't as dramatic of a change for me. I knew what was coming. I expected it. I expected to feel uncomfortable. And I just kind of accepted it and was like mentally more okay with it. And then with Willow, we had decided we were going to be at the hospital, and I was overdue with her. And we were kind of talking about things to do. And I told my midwife, I don't really want to go in and have my water broke. And I want to try to do some things to like naturally get things going. And my midwife had said, well, you could do castor oil. And I was like, I don't know. And my midwife has been midwife for 30 plus years. And she actually used castor oil 3 times to naturally get things going for herself. So that's what I did. I did castor oil one night. I think it was like a Tuesday night. And I remember my husband was at like a fantasy football draft, and he was texting me and he was like, do I need to come home? And I was like, no, I'm fine. Finish your draft. And and then I think I took it like around 7 at night and 9 at night, and like nothing was happening. And I was like, no, I wasn't having any contractions. And I was like, okay, this didn't work. Like, at the end of your pregnancy, you're like, I'm never going into labor. I'm going to be pregnant forever. So I went to bed, and Brian came home, and we went to bed. And I think it was at like 4:00. I woke up, 4 a.m. And I remember my eyes opening, and I was like, all of a sudden it hit me. Like I had a contraction, and I've been having lots of Braxton Hicks contractions, but this first contraction, I was like, okay, that felt a little different. And so I just kind of like sat up and had like a sip of water. And then immediately, like within 45 seconds, another one. And then I stood up and I kind of was like rocking back and forth. And then 45 seconds, another one. And so I just woke Brian up and I was like, hey, I'm having some contractions. And bless this man, I don't know how many times I told him, I think I'm going into labor, like over the last like 3 weeks. He was like, okay, well, are you sure? Like, because I just, so many times I'm like, okay, I'm having contractions. And I was like, no, I'm really having contractions. And he got up and like within like 2 or 3 minutes, it got intense so quickly. And I was like, I think we have to go. Like, I think we have to go to the hospital right now, like within like 5 minutes of waking up. And so my mom was staying with us, and I woke her up and I said, okay, we're going to leave, because I had my other daughter here, and I was like, hey, we're going to get in the car. We're going to leave. You have to stay with Briar. And we got in the car, and I was like in it. Like I couldn't sit on the seat. I was lifting myself up, my bottom up off the seat. And during every contraction, like I was moaning. And this was maybe like 4:30. Like I had only been up for like 25 minutes. And we called my midwife. Like this is the first time I've even called her or notified her of anything, and just said, hey, Kathy, we're on our way to the hospital. And she said, oh, well, you can't get there before me. Like I need to get in the car. So she got in the car. We all drove down there, and I think we got there probably like 5 o'clock. We were about 25 minutes away. And at this point I was like, we walked in and they were like, okay, we're going to put you in triage. And I'm like, no. I need a room. Like this is happening right now. And so they put me in triage, and they were like trying to ask me questions. They have all their questions. And I felt like nobody really knew. Maybe I was hiding it a little, like how uncomfortable I was. But my midwife had said, don't let anybody check you. Just wait till I get there, because I don't think she wanted anything happening before she got there. Like she knew what I wanted. She knew my birth plan. She knew everything about my pregnancy and my body. And she wanted me to wait. So I said, no, you don't need to check me. I'm going to wait for my midwife to get here. And by about by 5:10, she got there and I was like, I'm going to need something. I'm going to need an epidural or something because I can't do this for 8 more hours. Like I'm far gone. And she was like, okay, just let me check you. And she said, okay, you're 10 centimeters dilated and your bag of water is like bulging out of you. Like you need to start pushing. And in that moment, I was like so relieved because I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's why I feel this way, is because my body wants to push out this baby. And in my mind, I had just woken up and just started labor. And I kept telling myself, oh, you have like 8 more hours. Like this is going to be a while. And like, and in my mind, I was kind of psyching myself out thinking like, oh, you can't, like, I can't do this for 8 more hours. When in reality, I was in transition. That's why I was feeling that way. And so I just hopped on the table. I got on all fours and I don't even know what made me think of that. I'd never thought of pushing a baby out that way. It was just very instinctual. I got on my hands and my knees and within 2 pushes, she was out. And so I think her birth time is like 5:20 and I woke up at 4 o'clock.
Wow.
And I had her at the hospital. So right after I remember she was on my chest and I looked at my husband and I was just like, what just happened? Like what? I couldn't believe it. Like it was all happened so fast and so quick, but so intense. Mm-hmm. It was like fast and furious. And I remember like the sun started coming up and then like they asked me if I wanted breakfast and they brought breakfast into me. It was the craziest thing because I felt like I had this like full night's sleep and then I woke up and had a baby and had breakfast. It was like the wildest feeling because it was not what I expected, what I planned. Like I had all these, I'm going to labor in the tub. Like the hospital had this beautiful birthing tub and I was like, I'm going to labor in the tub and I'm going to use the ball. I'm going to sit on the ball. And it was just like, no, you're not going to do any of those things. Like you're just going to come and you're going to have this baby. And,
what hospital is this, by the way? It sounds amazing.
It's Montgomeryville Einstein.
Okay.
Yeah, they were great. They were awesome. They were, I kept my placenta for like placenta encapsulation and the nurses thought that was like so cool. And they were so good about like honoring what I wanted and honoring like my choices and decisions. Like I wanted, Willow to stay with me. Like I didn't want her taken to the nursery. It gave me anxiety for her to go away and not to know what she was doing and where she was. And I wanted her with me and, just things like I didn't want the bath and even like the hearing test. I was like, when she was having the hearing test, they were having a hard time with it. Like she was like failing it. And I was like, can we just do it in a couple weeks? And they were like, sure, no problem. Your pediatrician can do it. And they were just like very good, like very honoring of kind of everything. Mm-hmm. So that was my experience, my second experience. And then, so right after Willow was born though, that's when we had gone back and forth whether or not we were going to do a home birth. And right after I looked at my husband and we were like, we could have done that at home.
Yeah. And you almost feel like you have to next time because it happened so fast.
Yeah, that too, is it happened so fast. It was almost a sign like, okay, like do the next one at home mm-hmm. because it happened so fast. And also we felt like we didn't really need the hospital. We didn't do anything there. It's like we just walked in and then had a baby there. It was, and then we were there kind of stuck there. Like I remember we wanted to leave right away and they were like, no, you have to stay. And right after we knew that we were going to do our next one at home. So then I got pregnant with Aspen, our third, and my pregnancies have all been very similar. Everything was kind of the same. I knew what was coming. I expected it all. Third trimester came. I was super uncomfortable, but I was like, this is what I signed up for. I knew this was coming. And so we decided to have, we decided we knew we were going to have a home birth with Aspen and we were with our same midwife, who is amazing. We love her so much. And so my due date came along. Same old thing. And I was like, okay, let's do this. So I think it was like 3 or 4, maybe 5 days overdue with Aspen. And I was like, okay, let's go get some castor oil. So I sent my husband out and we're like, let's give this a go, because honestly, I had no complaints about that with my first. It was like a really good experience. And I'm not sure if it contributed to having a fast labor, but I was like, if it did, that's kind of cool. So I did that about 3 or 4 days past due with Aspen. And it was the same thing. I did it. And then I went to sleep. Like, I think I did it a little earlier in the day, like maybe around 5 the day before. And then I was kind of under the mindset like, oh, maybe this will happen tonight. Maybe I'll go into labor tonight. And then I didn't. I ended up going to sleep. And I remember going to sleep like a little frustrated, like, oh, maybe I did this for nothing. Like, maybe it's not going to work this time. And it's so funny because the timing of this it's basically the exact same timing as Willow, my second. I woke up at 4 and it was the exact same thing. I woke up with 1 contraction and I was like, okay, that feels different. And then by about 4:20, I called my midwife and I was like, I think you should come. You need to come now. She got here around 4:50. And we had the tub. Brian started filling the tub right away. And I think after my second, with being so quick, he knew there was a chance of that. But at the same time, we were like, that was so quick, that'll probably never happen again. Like, that was just a fluke thing. Like, maybe I was dilated a lot and we didn't know or something. And so I had woke up just after 4 and she was born at like 5:15. So again, it was like so quick. I had the tub. This was the first time I had ever labored in the tub and birthed in the tub. And I loved it. I remember the second I stepped into the water, like the warm water, I felt like my whole body just completely relaxed. And I was like, I remember even saying out loud, like, this is the only time I've ever said this during labor. It was the 2 times I got into the bathtub. I said, oh, this feels so good. Like, which is not something I had said in my first 2 labors. And I remember it just made my whole body relax. And I just felt like the warm water, like on my back and just on my hips and everything, I felt my body like truly, everything relax. And, my midwife had got there at like 5:00. So she was there for like 10 or 15 minutes before she was born. And I remember her just kind of like unpacking things. And she's like, how you doing? How you feeling? And I'm like, I'm good. I'm going to get in the tub. And, she came over and it was like 2 or 3 pushes again. And it was like 2 or 3 pushes, 2 pushes, and her head was out, and then like 1 more push, and she came out, and like right into, I think my husband reached down, and I was like, Brian, like, get her. And I pushed her out, and he reached down and like put her right on my chest, and it was good. Like, I was so, again, right after, I was like, oh my goodness, that was so quick. That was wild. Like, it's very intense. Like, I loved having quick labors. But at the same time, after, I felt like I didn't even have a moment to like think about what was happening during my labor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. It's like, yeah, it's a lot to process quickly.
It really was. Like, it was just so fast and furious. And like, there was no time to like, even like, how are you feeling? What do you think? Like, there was none of that. It was like, just go. Like, it was like, get the midwife here, get the tub filled, and like get in the tub, and then push this baby out, and then hold this baby, and then get out, and then birth the placenta, and then nurse the baby. It was like all of these things. And so that's why I really loved having a home birth, because right after Aspen was born, I felt like, and I was in the bed, and my older 2 daughters were there. We had woken them up like right before she was born. So they were in the bathroom, and were there for her birth, which is something that we had talked about, and I had let them watch birth stories and birth videos, and it was something we were very prepared for, and actually one of the reasons we wanted to have a home birth. And then when we were in the bed after, I felt it was just so nice to be at home in that moment, because it had been so crazy and so hectic during, like, from the time I woke up until she was born, that just being in my own bed for the first time, like I said, like, I was in the hospital for my first 2 births. So it was just such a cool feeling being at home. And, you know, my mom went down and like made breakfast and coffee and brought it up to me in bed, and I was able to shower in my own shower. And so that was just like a really cool experience for the first time. And any kind of fears I had, they were just like completely wiped out in that moment, because like going into that birth, planning our first home birth, there was a lot of unknown. Like I had been at home births before, but on the other end, like I was like, okay, I'm having a baby at home. I've never done this before. Like, what is this going to look like? And I just knew in that moment that we had made the right decision for our family. I just felt very, very at peace with it, and like so grateful that we were at home.
So you knew for sure that if you had another, you would have another home birth, I'm guessing.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I even remember saying to my husband, I was like, okay, that can't be our last birth. Like I need to do that again. That was fun. Yeah.
All right. Well, I know the last birth went just a little bit differently. So let's hear about that.
My goodness. So the only thing that was this like similar about my last birth is that it was quick, and it was actually quicker than any of the others. Mm-hmm. And so my last pregnancy with Primrose, my pregnancy looked very similar again. I got up to my due date, and it was like, okay, I think I let myself go a little longer. Maybe I was like a week past due, maybe a little longer than that. And I was like, okay, let's start trying some things here. And by that, I mean, let's go get the castor oil again. So I sent my husband out, he got castor oil, and I took it maybe at like 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And around 7, so we were just hanging out that night, like watching a movie with the kids. And I know at 7:59 I was not in labor yet, because we were sitting hanging out, and I remember I did a post. I posted a picture of us on Facebook, and so that's kind of the only timestamp I have for myself, is that was posted at 7:59, and I remember we were just hanging out, and then right after that I remember like getting a strong contraction, and like I said, I had been having Braxton Hicks throughout my third trimester in all of my pregnancies. And they did feel really intense to me. A lot of the times I was like, is this maybe something? Is this it? But I remember standing up and kind of leaning over the coffee table, and I was like, okay. And then I didn't want to say anything, because I felt like for so long I was like, okay, maybe this is it. And I didn't really say anything, but my husband like looked over at me. He's like, are you okay? You good? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And then like 45 seconds later, I had another contraction, and I was like, can you push on my lower back? And he was like, yeah. Is this it? And I'm like, no. It's probably just Braxton Hicks contraction. It's fine. It's nothing. And I was so scared to say it was it, because I think I was so worried if it wasn't that I was going to feel disappointed. So I was like, no, it's fine. And then I think within like 5 minutes, I was like, okay, I finally said like, okay, this might be it. I think this might be it. And he was like, should I call the midwife? And then we also this is the first time I had a videographer and a photographer coming to our birth. And I was like, so excited about that. And he was like, should I call the videographer and the photographer and the midwife? And I was like, no. I don't want anyone to come and have to go home, because backtrack a little, 1 week prior to this, I thought I was in labor and called everyone, and everyone came to my house and actually ended up having a sleepover with no baby. And so I was so scared of calling and making everybody come to my house unless there was really a baby coming. So I had that in the back of my mind. And so I said, no, just wait, like, let's make sure this is really it. And then it must have been like, so I think I went into labor around 8 o'clock. And it must have been like around 8:15 that I was like, or maybe even earlier, like 8:10. I was like, okay, you can call them. Like, I think you should call them. And I remember going up the stairs on my hands and my knees to get up to the bathroom at this point, because it just all same thing. It just all hit so fast and furious. Like, it was like I went from nothing to like a 9 out of 10. And I was like, okay, I was like, can you fill up the bathtub? I'm just gonna like make my way upstairs. And my mom, she's so funny. My mom always comes and stays with us like right before my due date. She did this with my sister too. Bless her heart. I wish this upon every woman, that they have someone to help them like this. She would come and stay with us like right before my due date, and then she would stay a few weeks after. So my mom was with us, and she said, like, it was 8 o'clock. And like I said, we had been watching a movie with the girls, and she was like, okay, you think this is it? Okay. She goes, I'm going to get the girls to sleep, and I'm going to go to sleep too. So that in the middle of the night, when you're like really in labor, I'm rested and I can help you. And I remember in that moment kind of looking at her like, nobody's going to sleep. Like, this is happening right now. Like, there's no, like, I finally said, like, she was getting the girls ready for bed. I'm like, I don't think you need to get the girls ready for bed. I think this is happening. And she's like, oh, okay. And so, I remember my husband and my mom were we were kind of having this conversation, and then another contraction was about to come, and I could feel it. I could feel it building up, and I grabbed each of their arms. And, this is the first time during my labor I felt this need to get up like on my toes. I don't know why, but like whenever I'd have a contraction, I would hold on to something and I would come right up on my toes. And I'm not sure why, it just was like my body's way of just handling that contraction. So I remember I grabbed onto each of their arms and I would like came up on my toes. And I thought to myself in that moment, like nobody was here yet, but I thought to myself, I wonder if I'm dilated. I wonder if I'm dilated at all. I'm going to give a little push and see what happens. And so I gave like the tiniest little push, and then my water broke. It just like exploded all over the floor. And I was wearing pants, and like it was all over my pants. And I remember in that moment, my mom and Brian kind of looked at each other, because we all realized like nobody's here. There's no midwife here. Like, we're by ourselves. And then my mom said, oh, your water broke. She kind of like whispered it to me, and I looked at her. I'm like, Mom, I know. It was like this moment of like, yeah, I figured. Thanks for letting me know. Like, it was like splashed all over the floor. She's like, I think your water broke. And so I was like, okay, Brian, is the tub full? And he's like, yes. So then I remember just walking from my one bathroom over into my other bathroom, and I just got into the tub. And the day before, we had talked to my videographer, and because she had been checking in with us daily, like, how are you feeling? Because I was like a week overdue, and she was like, how are you feeling? Like, what are you thinking? And I'm like, same old thing. And she's like, okay. So she had known my second and third labor had been really quick. And she said, okay, so if something happens and I'm not there, because she lived like 45 minutes away, she said, if I'm not there and something happens and you're like really quick in labor and the baby's coming, can you grab your phone and just put it on voice record so that we can hear like kind of the conversation and like the baby's first cry and all of that. And Brian's like, we can just grab the video camera, the home video camera. And she's like, oh, that's even better. She's like, if you can do that, that's even better. So bless his soul that he somehow had the video camera up in the bathroom. And when I was about to get in the tub, he grabbed it and started filming. And in the moment, I had no idea he was even filming. I was like off in another world, because this is, again, was just happening so quickly. And I was watching a movie 1 minute, and then all of a sudden I'm like getting into the tub. So I remember I got into the tub, and I think my body was telling me like to push, because I got in and I said, okay, on the next one, I'm going to start pushing. And it's so funny, because in the video, I can hear my husband say, no. How about you just wait a little? That's what he said. Like, how about you
He's
just
not
wait.
ready.
Yeah. He goes, how about you just wait a little? And like, okay, like, I'm just going to, let's just hang out. Like, let's just wait. And I talked to him about that after, and I said, like, were you nervous that the midwife wasn't there yet? And he said, no. He's like, I know you really wanted the videographer, the photographer there. And he's like, I knew we would be fine without the midwife. He's like, we've done this. I knew we'd be okay. And in that moment, I was like, I didn't need to wait. I didn't care about waiting for anyone. My body was screaming at me to push. And so in the next contraction, I started pushing. And I will never forget that feeling. That was the first labor that I hadn't been checked at all. And I know some women don't like being checked at all during their labors. I did. I just like that little I just like to know what was happening a little bit, even though I know it's really doesn't say a lot. You can go from 4 to 10 in 10 minutes. Because every time I was checked, I was usually really far along. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm almost done. So I had no idea how dilated I was or anything. So I'm like, I'm going to give a push and see what happens. And in that moment, I gave one push, and I could feel her head completely enter the birth canal. It was like, there she is. And it was like, whoa, okay. And like with one more push in the same contraction, her head came out. And I said out loud, the baby's head is out. And my mom had just walked into the bathroom, like just realized I was in the bathtub. My midwife wasn't there. Nobody was there. I said, and so my mom had like brought my other daughters in because they were like so excited to be there for the birth. And when Primrose's head came out, it did occur to me, like in that moment, like, okay, we're by ourselves. Like, what would a midwife do right now? So I reached down to feel if the cord was around her neck, and it was. So I could feel that. And I wasn't really like alarmed because I knew it's a super common thing. And I wasn't sure if the cord was around the neck of any of my other babies because I hadn't seen, but I know it happens in like 1/3 of births. It was just something instinctually that I felt like without a midwife, I wanted to just reach down and just check for that. So I reached down and I remember saying to Brian, the cord's around her neck. And he was like, okay. I was like, can you get in? So he was like, okay. So he hands the video camera over to my mom, and which I didn't even know he was videotaping at this time because my head was down. I wasn't really paying attention to anything else. And he got into the tub and I flipped over and I was like, okay, the cord, it was in between contractions. And I said, okay, the cord's around the baby's neck. And I could feel it. He's like, no, it's not. It's okay. And I'm like, yes, it is. Do not question me. I can feel it because I was so sure I could feel it. And I knew, and I wasn't very concerned, but in the moment, like we were by ourselves and like no midwife was there or anything. And I was like, let's get this baby out, you know? And so I said, okay, I'm going to push and I'm going to push this baby out on the next one. And so he was in the tub. I had flipped over. And in one push, like her entire body came out. And then in the video, I can see he like took the cord out from around her neck and then put her right on me, on my chest. And you can even hear me say in the video, I say, okay, let's rub her. Like, let's start rubbing her. So, which I had never done with any of my other babies. So I think my midwife just reached up and kind of started like rubbing the baby's feet or rubbing the baby's bum just to kind of like get her going. But in that moment I was like, okay, I guess I'm the midwife right now. So let's rub her. So I started rubbing her, and it took maybe like, I'm trying to think, maybe like 10 seconds before she took her first breath. But in that moment, it felt like an hour. So I was like rubbing her. And that was the first time during my labor and my birth that I felt at all concerned that there wasn't a midwife there. Like I wasn't, when I got into the tub, I was like, we're fine. We've done this before. We're good. I trust my body. We can do this. Like, you know, let's start pushing this baby out. And then in that moment, I was like, she hadn't taken her breath yet and I was rubbing her. And then finally she let out this big cry, and it was like, so I felt my whole body. It was just so much relief because I was like, okay, we did it. We birthed this baby. We're by ourselves, but she's crying. We're okay. She's great color. Like we're good. She was covered in so much vernix, which was the same as all my babies, which made me laugh because they were all overdue. So it was funny that she had that much vernix, but and then a few minutes later, my midwife came in and she was like, oh, hey, I started checking her and looking at her. And she's like, she looks great. And the funny thing is, she's like, when I walked into the house, she's like, I could feel the energy that the baby was already born, which I thought was so special because she's like, yeah, I knew when I walked in that the baby had already been born. So I got out of the bathtub, I got into bed, I birthed the placenta, and then she, you know, it was kind of the same thing as if she was there. She just kind of like checked over the baby, checked for everything, checked me, and everything was fine. Everything was great. So she was born at, her birth time is 8:40. And like I said, I wasn't in labor at 7:59. So let's say I started labor at 8. So it was like 40 minutes.
Wow. That is fast.
Yeah, it's fast. So there's really no way anybody could have made it here in time. Yeah. It's fast. So we joke sometimes, like if we had a 5th baby, like I don't even know, like what if I was at the grocery store, like would I just have the baby at the grocery store? Like,
yeah, I'd be afraid to like go anywhere.
Well, yeah, like I should just stay at the house. Like, don't even go for a walk. You might have a baby on a sidewalk.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And your photographers will just have to like live with you for a couple weeks.
Well, yeah, we joked about that the whole last week. They were like, even before my fourth birth, they were like, this is so quick. We should just come and have a sleepover for the week. And that's kind of what they would have to do to not miss the birth.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, so how has your postpartum been with the fourth?
Postpartum was pretty good. I felt this huge relief physically to have the baby in my arms instead of my belly, because I had felt so uncomfortable for weeks leading up to the birth. I did have something with my leg that was like weird. I woke up in the middle of the night and like my one leg was like throbbing, and I would have to wake up and walk around and kind of like walk it off. And then like 4 hours later, I'd wake up, and I never really got an answer what it was about. It just kind of went away on its own. My midwife was like, there's a lot that goes on. Like there's a lot of blood flow and your hormones, and like just there's so much going on. Just like put a hot water pad on it, and drink lots of water and get up and walk as much as possible to keep your blood flowing in that leg. So it just kind of went on away on its own, and that was kind of my only concern.
Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to share, or do you have resources that you like to recommend? Honestly,
my biggest advice to anybody going into a birth, whether it's your first or your fifth, is to really make sure you're with a doctor or midwife that you feel like is really listening to you and really like respects your decisions. And also that you respect theirs, like what their opinions on everything. But then something as simple as like something that really, really helped me was going on YouTube and typing in like peaceful birth, peaceful home birth, peaceful water birth. Just watching births over and over and over again made me feel like, honestly, I do believe that's why when our fourth birth, when there was no midwife here yet, I feel like that was a lot of the reason why I felt so relaxed, because I had been watching so many births on repeat for weeks. Birth felt very normal to me. I was watching it over and over and over again. And I tried to be very particular about the kind of births I watched, so that I didn't feel fearful. In a lot of my labors, things didn't go as planned, but I wanted to feel like as confident and as calm as possible going into that. So that's big advice for me, is if you can kind of expose yourself to births that make you feel like very empowered and very confident, I think that goes a long way.
And you were showing some of those to your older kids too, right? To prepare them.
Yeah. They loved that. We watched a lot of, I showed them different kinds of births, very peaceful births, but then also births where, women were maybe moaning very loud. Mm-hmm. I wanted them to be very prepared for whatever happened. If I was like really uncomfortable and having a hard time, I wanted them to be prepared for that. Yeah. I wanted them to know that was okay and that was normal.
Yeah. All right. Well, where's the best place for people to find you to connect online?
So my Instagram is at Logan Randazzo. And that is really like where I hang out a lot. That's where I spend a lot of my time on social media sharing.
Okay, perfect. We'll put that on the show notes page in case anybody's listening in the car and doesn't know how to spell your last name or anything like that. Thank you so much, Logan, for coming on and sharing. I really loved hearing your stories.
Thank you for having me, Bryn. This was so fun.
Now I'm going to chat with Kelly about the Embrace Carrier from Ergobaby, today's sponsor. Hi, Kelly. Welcome to the Birth Hour. Thanks for coming on the podcast today to talk to me about Ergobaby.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell listeners just a little bit about you and what you do at Ergobaby?
Yeah, so my name is Kelly McKnight. I work for Ergobaby as the Community and Events Manager. I'm also a doula and a CLEC, so I'm a lactation specialist. But for Ergo in particular, I handle all of our events throughout U.S. and Canada, and I also help with a little bit of social media.
Great. And for anyone who doesn't know about Ergobaby, which I'm sure is like maybe 2 people total, can you tell us a little bit of background on the company?
Sure. So Ergo was started back in 2002 from a mom, like most of the best products that are invented. A mom that needed help, a mom that had another child, had a background in design, and wanted something to help her get back to regular life. Similar with me, with a lot of moms, parents, caregivers. You know, when you have a baby, there's that quote that a mother doesn't become a mother basically until a baby is born. Before that, the mother didn't exist, just the woman. And it's so true. Like once you have a baby, you realize that it's really difficult most of the time to get back to the life that was before you became a mom. So it was started from a mom that needed extra hands, that had another child and wanted to continue on with the things she was doing.
Yeah, and you guys have evolved so much over the years. I have the original Ergobaby carrier from my daughter who's now about to be 8.
Yes, that sounds like my life. That's me too. The original is one of my, every interview, every time I'm speaking, the original is my favorite. And I say that because I have such a loyalty to it, just like you. My son, who will be 9 in March, I started off with that original and I used it really for all my kids. Though my 4th one now, I'm planning to use it with her also.
Oh, yeah. The memories are strong with that one. But you guys have evolved so much over the years. And I think particularly with targeting more products for brand new babies, because you used to have to use like this infant insert and all these things. So today I want to talk to you about the Embrace, which is your brand new product. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So the Embrace has become one of my favorite carriers, besides the original and the Adapt. It's our newborn-based carrier, and it's truly the softest carrier that you'll ever use. I've been using it so far myself with my now 3-month-old, but it's just super soft. It's super easy to fold away and store in your diaper bag. The fabric that is made from this carrier is like a knit fabric. So it just allows you to get really snug with your baby, which is awesome. And it's not as bulky. Not saying that our other carriers are bulky, but in terms of a newborn baby, it's just picture yourself wanting to always be in yoga pants. It's like the yoga pants of carriers.
Yeah, and it kind of looks like a soft wrap, but it still has the buckles, which probably make it a little bit more user-friendly for people who have never wrapped a carrier.
Totally, 100%. I love wraps because they really provide a lot of comfort and newborn comfort for mom. But I just was never a wrap mom. With my 2 being so close in age, they're 14 months apart. I just didn't seem to find the time to do the full wrap and wear it all day. Where this, for me, even now with my 4th, being able to have that like bridge in between a wrap and our soft structured carrier with the buckles is like genius.
What's your favorite? You said you love how soft it is. Do you have any other favorite features about it for using it with a newborn?
Yeah, I love the way it wraps around your shoulders, which is very similar to the wrap. You know how the wrap sits on your shoulders and you can expand it to make it a little tighter on baby to pull baby closer. That's one of my other favorite features. I know it sounds really minor, but being able to store it like I can in my diaper bag is so amazing because I feel like even as a 4th-time mom, because it's been like 4 or 5 years since I had a newborn baby, I'm feeling like a first-time mom again, and I'm like bringing the whole nursery with me. Like I've somehow went back into this world of like, I need this, I need this, I need this. So it's nice to be able to store it in my diaper bag really easily also.
Yeah, that is the one thing about the original carrier is it can take up a little bit of room. You kind of have to store it more like in the car than in your bag. So how does it work with the buckles? Are you buckling it just once around the waist, or how does that work?
Yeah, so you buckle it around your waist, and then you also buckle it just very similar to our other carriers. You buckle it around to the sides, like underneath you near your chest area. But the difference is you're not buckling it directly onto the front panel of the carrier. It snugs underneath that panel. So you kind of have to see it to understand it, but the buckles aren't technically on the top. It's just kind of like throughout the middle around baby a little bit. So it makes it a little easier. You don't have the like frustration of trying to like wrap it around like a wrap. And you also just easily, it pulls baby in closer since it's a newborn based carrier.
Yeah, and I feel like it looks a little bit more like seamless. The buckles are kind of hidden. So you can use this right away with newborns, right? And what's the weight limit on it?
Yeah, you can. So even though you can use it right away with newborns, it's from 7 to 25 pounds. So you want to technically wait. If your newborn is under 7 pounds, you want to wait to use it when your baby's 7 pounds. But it's from 7 to 25 pounds. And also this carrier was a really great thing. You can face baby forward in this one.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes.
Very cool. And I'm guessing that's when they're a little bit older?
Yeah, it's usually when baby's able, there's like a few key points that we hit when baby's able to sit unassisted, and then also when baby can clear the panel. So you don't want that front panel when baby's facing forward to go over baby's nose or mouth. You want them to be able to clear that.
Okay. Along those lines, do you have any additional like baby wearing tips, general guidelines that people should know that haven't done any baby wearing yet?
The first thing I always say, especially because we get these questions a lot when parents come into our booth at events, is just take a deep breath first. Take a deep breath.
I love it.
And really be patient with yourself, not only with your baby. And because a lot of the times babies feel your energy. So it's always good to really work on your breathing. Breathing is a really just important aspect in life in general, to be able to balance your breathing. So that's my first advice always, is like, take a deep breath, mama or dad, you're doing great. No one gets an instruction book. So just take a deep breath and relax, and then try to put your baby on and, walk around. That's another thing. When people baby wear, a lot of times, sometimes they're new to it, so they're a little nervous. They're like, oh my gosh, how does this work? There's buckles, there's this and that, especially for first-time parents. So we say, take a deep breath, put your baby in, and now walk. Because sometimes people just stand still and they expect baby to either, if they're doing this in the sense of getting baby to calm down, which was my case with my first, he had colic. And so someone said, you should try the Ergo carrier. And I had to drive down to Claremont to this little hippie store to find it. Yeah. Because again, it was like 9 years ago. And I remember someone telling me, okay, walk, after I put him in. And that really just allowed me and him to relax a little bit and then kind of nestle into the carrier. After you start doing that, you can kind of tighten it up a little bit as you walk and you get more comfortable. It's really just, even more so than the carrier, like advice for just new parents, just take a deep breath and sit with what you're in, and just pat yourself on the back for even getting to the point of trying something new and trying to take that next step in your parenthood journey.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, is there anything else that you want people to know about the Embrace? And I guess my other question would be, how do you decide between this and some of the other carriers that might also work for infants?
Yeah, so we have a couple of them. We have a wrap, we have the Adapt, we have the Omni, we have this one. And the best bet for me would say, usually when people come to the booth, the first question is like, do you want a wrap? And right there, if they say yes or no, then that eliminates, if they say no, then that eliminates that. Okay, so then now we have the three other options, which would be the Embrace, the Omni, and the Adapt. So now we know that. Do you want buckles? Do you want a mesh carrier? If they say mesh, then it narrows it down to another version, which is going to be the Omni or the Adapt. Or do you want a wrap with buckles? That's kind of like, because a lot of parents don't know exactly what this is when we say, well, what do you want to try? So do you want like a wrap, but do you want buckles? And if they say yes, then I automatically bring them to the Embrace. You just really have to get a feel around to say, what your key pointers. Do you want to face baby forward? If a parent says no, then maybe they want to go for the Adapt, because the baby's not facing forward in that one. It's almost like a little checklist. And any parent out there, if there's an event that's close by you, I would always recommend visiting one of the local events that we participate in. We participate in about 50 events a year, sometimes even more. So if you're interested in coming down to get a feel and try them on first, that would be your best option, because you're going to have Ergobaby brand ambassadors that are, most of us, I say, our moms that have worn our babies either 9 years ago or are currently wearing them now, or even caretakers, our aunts and uncles. Like there's someone that has dealt with an Ergobaby carrier that's representing you at the booth. And so they're able to get those questions from you, have you try on carriers. And then your next bet is to visit your local retailer, which is kind of hard now because so many of our small boutique retailers are kind of phasing out, but just try to try them on so that way you can get a feel. Carriers are a lot like jeans. We like to tell all of our parents and caregivers that come to our booths. So you have to get a feel for them and see which one fits you best. One might fit this mom better, and this one might fit your body, your torso, your height. It might fit you a little differently. So I always say try to try them out.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys have a really informative website too, so people can also head over to ergobaby.com and you can search by category, carry position, age, all those things so that they can find their options that are available to them as well.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much again to Logan for sharing her birth stories with us and to Kelly for chatting with me about Ergobaby's Embrace Carrier. If you want more information from today's episode, you can head over to thebirthhour.com and search for Logan's name in the search bar. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com and click Become a Member to pledge your support. And as a thank you, you'll get an invitation to join our private Facebook group and access to exclusive episodes. Your vote of confidence and support means the world to me.